In this video, I'm going to show you how to build up and paint the southern half of the War for Terra Heavy Gear Blitz set. I got done with my northern half a while ago, and all these are fully magnetized, which means you can make them what you see is what you get, and I'll show you how to do that in this video. All the heavy gears in this set come in sprues, and they also come with hexagon and round bases. You don't need the open slots in the bases, so you can use some sprue glue, which I will show you how to make on the upper right hand corner, and just seal those slots up. You're gonna get 2 sprues of iguanas, 4 sprues of Jaggers, 4 sprues of black mambas, and 2 sprues of spitting cobras. Be sure to print out the assembly instructions from the DreamPot 9 website. The instructions will let you know what parts are which, and also gives you a neat list of all the weapons that come with each of the heavy gears. It also comes with pictorials on how to put the heavy gears together. To put these together, you'll need a few tools. First, you'll want a hobby knife. To glue plastic together, you'll need some plastic glue and a good pair of hobby clippers. I'm going to be using the iguana, which is the smallest heavy gear, as the basis of this build tutorial. Start by snipping out all the parts that you need. Here I'm going to be working on the torso first, and then clean off some of the sprue residue with your hobby knife. If you plan on magnetizing your models, you'll want to cut off this U-shaped piece on all the shoulders of any of the heavy gears. You can always refer to the build instructions that you get from DreamPot 9's website as you go along. Now use your plastic glue and just glue the parts together following the build guide. The iguana comes with 2 options for its right arm and 1 left arm. Depending on the pose you're going for, you can snip off either right arm and glue it onto the model. There are also hand grenades and vibro blades that you can add as cool accessories. Just snip them out and glue them into place where it looks good, usually around the waistline of the heavy gears. Next, clip out all the weapons and clean them with your hobby knife. Get rid of all the sprue residue. All the weapons come with grips. Now, if you want these weapons to be mounted onto the hands, you're gonna have to cut the grips off. The rocket pods on the shoulders have little nibs on them, and since we're magnetizing, we're gonna have to cut those nibs off as well. You're going to need these very thin pieces of sheet metal, which I will show you how to get on the upper right hand corner. These miniatures are really small, so you want to use a sheet metal shear and just cut these strips into roughly 1 by 1 millimeter squares. This will provide something ferrous for the magnets to stick onto. Now, steel doesn't stick to plastic glue, so make sure you use super glue. And you'll want to apply that glue onto the hand as well as onto the shoulder. And then what you can do is put a little bit of super glue onto, let's just say, a toothpick, and then transfer those little 1 by 1 millimeter pieces onto those areas. Next, we're going to put magnets on the weapons, and for this I'm going to use 1 by 2 millimeter round magnets, and using super glue, the areas where I had clipped off the grips, I will go ahead and put these magnets on. For the chatterbox antenna or the missile packs, you will be putting the magnet on the stems instead. Allow the super glue to dry, and then after that you should be able to test out all the weapons on the gear. Magnetizing is time consuming, but it allows you to have a true what you see is what you get model. If you want to portray any of your gears holding the vibro blade, just cut off the handle of the vibro blade and then glue it onto the hand like this. With different arm options and the ability to twist things at different angles, you can make 2 models look completely different. Next, I'm going to move on to the Jagger, and I'm going to use a lot of the same principles that I used with the iguana. A few differences are the Jagger has actually 2 leg options, and also it has 2 shoulder mounts, so those U-shaped formations on them, again, if you are magnetizing, you'll want to cut those U-shapes off. That will allow you to glue on those 1 by 1 sheets of sheet metal. Here you see how the different leg option looks on this Jagger. The Jager's weapons may look a little bit different, but it's the same thing. You'll want to clip off the grips on all of the weapons. Like the iguana, you'll want to put the 1x2mm round magnets with super glue onto the grip areas of the bazooka, of any of the autocannons, and so on. And on the gear, you will be super gluing the 1x1mm baking pan sheets onto both shoulders and onto one of the hands. There are a few options in this Jagger kit. You can use the leader head to make one of the gears the unit leader, and you can also use different arm and leg options to change the poses between gears. Now we're going to move to the Black Mamba, which is very similar to the Jagger, but it does have some unique weapon options. Similar to the Jagger, this has two shoulder hard points, so you'll want to remove the U-shaped formations on it if you're magnetizing, but just bear in mind that these hard points are a little bit higher, so do not remove the entire platform. Also, like the Jagger, it's got a leader head option and also the regular troopers, so if you're building a leader, you can use the leader head, and then for the rest of them, you can just use the regular trooper heads. The Black Mamba has similar hard points to the Jagger, so you'll be applying some of the 1x1 pieces onto the hands, onto the two shoulder mounts, but there are also additional hard points. The new hard point is actually underneath the arms right here. You want to put some of those 1x1mm metal strips in these locations too. This is going to be for the underslung rotary laser. Now what I did here is I just lopped off this nib, so I'm able to put this rotary laser on either the left arm or the right arm. Now in this location here, I applied a 1x2mm round magnet with super glue, and then once everything settles, you can try it on, and this is how it should fit. Another new weapon system is this anti-personnel rocket. You'll just want to place a magnet right in this location here. The rest of the weapon systems are very similar to before. The rocket pods, you'll just cut off this little nib at the bottom of it, and then for all of the handheld weapons, just snip off the grips. Once fully magnetized, the Black Mamba should be able to be interchangeable like so. Now moving on to the heaviest of the gears, the Spitting Cobra. This has many similarities with the Black Mamba with a few differences. The arms are actually two-piece, so you'll want to apply some glue right at the elbow joint, and then you can apply the forearm to it in a variety of different poses. And as you can see, the Spitting Cobra is very large compared to the iguana. It also has this unique back piece here, which you will be applying to the bottom of the rear mounted engine in this location. You want to apply it so that the square portion of it is actually centered, and then the hard point is offset to allow this field gun to be placed on it. The Spitting Cobra has the most hard points here on the hand, on the underslung portion of the forearms here, a shoulder mount on the left shoulder, the field gun mount over here, the anti-personnel mount right in the middle of the backpack here, a mortar mount here on the right on the back, and a satellite uplink mount on the right shoulder. You would attach the 1x1mm strips of steel like you did on the previous gears. On the field gun mount, I actually applied two pieces of steel, one on the top and one on the back. Put one strip on the back of the engine for the anti-personnel rockets, and then one more on the right side of the back for the mortars. The last piece of steel goes on the slant of the right shoulder. For the mortars, you'll want to put the 1x2mm magnet right here. And for the next few parts, we're going to be drilling some holes with a hobby drill and a 2mm diameter bit. Starting with the flamer, you'll want to drill a 1mm deep hole right here. The hole is going to look like this, and you'll put some super glue in this area and then drop a magnet in. It will sit nice and flush. You will do the same thing with the rotary cannon. Apply the hole right here, again 1mm deep. Apply super glue, drop a magnet in, and it will look like this. For the field gun, you'll want to do the same thing, except you're going to do this in the little curvature area right here. For the satellite uplink, what you want to do is kind of slice a little bit of area away over here, and then in this place apply some super glue and put a magnet there. After the super glue is dry, go ahead and try out all the various pieces on the Spitting Cobra. Now that the build is done, it's time to paint. First, you'll want to prime the weapons. You'll want to put it on a piece of steel, like a steel ruler, or a piece of steel that I found around the house over here. Next, using white aerosol primer or airbrush primer, go ahead and spray it onto all the weapons that are on your metal piece. Coat them all the way around, and then after that, moving on to the gears, you want to use like a paint stick or any piece of long object, and then roll over some duct tape, and then after that, place all the gears onto the duct tape, almost like double-sided tape. If you have double-sided tape, you can use that too. Use the same white primer as before and prime the gears all the way around. Batch painting like this really saves time. Now we're going to do some splash dash. Use some dark tone from Army Painter and then combine it 50-50 with water. Mix it up real good. And then after that, just generously apply it onto all your gears. Do not do this to the weapons, just to the gears. Once the splash dash treatment is complete, go ahead and remove the gears from the sticks so you have better access all the way around. For these Allied Southern Territory models, I'm going to apply a desert camo scheme to them, which is basically different shades of brown. Before working on the gears, I'm going to put a simple treatment of Grim Black Speed Paint onto all the weapons. And you'll really kind of want to hold on to the weapons to prevent them from rotating around, and then after that, apply them onto the same metallic object that you used before to touch up the rest of the parts and then allow it to dry. To prevent any handling damage on this black, I recommend 1 coat of gloss primer followed by 1 coat of matte primer to seal everything in. Moving on to the gears themselves, I want them to have a brown look, so I start with a light brown, which is palette brown speed paint from Army Painter, and I liberally apply this color onto all the gears. I just paint the entire thing. Once this is dry, I move on to the camo effect. For this, you want to grab a household sponge like this, and then cut off a small wedge, something that looks like this. You can have a broad section and a little bit of a sharper section, and then using 2 colors, leather brown and dark oak. I start with leather brown, which is a lighter color, and then I gently dab this lighter color randomly all over the gears. This gives it a splotchy random look, which is what you expect from camouflage. Don't overdo it, only about 1/3 of the model should have splotches on them. Now pick the darker dark oak color and use a smaller portion of the sponge and then sponge on top of the leather brown areas you had laid down before. This creates a 2-tone camouflage effect. And with the sponge, it'll look very random and suiting for this scheme. Next, I'm going to use Grim Black Speed Paint and a pointed tip brush and put this on the knee joints, on the wheels, and the feet of the gears, the front tips of their feet, also applying it onto the waist area, the elbows. And when you do this, you want to be fairly precise because you want to create that crispness that only comes from man-made machinery. This offsets some of the randomness and the more organic nature of the camouflage scheme you had put down earlier. I also decided to paint the face plates of the gears black just to give them a little bit more emphasis and a point of interest right at the focal point of the model. I next used Broadsword Silver Speed Paint and I applied it onto all the vibro knives. This is a dark enough silver that it will go right over the palette bone speed paint from earlier. I next used Void Shield Blue acrylic paint and I apply it onto the viewports on all the heads. Most of them are tiny blue dots, but on the Spitting Cobra it is a fairly large faceplate requiring a little bit more brushwork. Next, I switched to pure red acrylic paint and this goes onto all the rocket pods. Basically, wherever there's a warhead, you will be painting it red. You will do this on any of the small as well as the large rocket pods, both front and back. I also used this red to create a little unit marking. In this case, it's an inverted triangle, and I basically put it on random portions of the gears. It could be on any of their shoulder pads or even right in the middle of the torso. I next used Weapon Bronze metallic paint, not a speed paint but regular metallic paint, and I paint these portions of the flamers with them. It makes them look a little bit more distinctive, and once dry I use dark wash and I wash it over those bronze areas to give it depth and shadowing. I next use matte white acrylic paint to apply more unit markings. This time in a more practical manner, I'm actually putting numbers on the gears. So if you have, let's just say, 4 gears of the same type, you can give them different numbers so you can tell the leader from Unit 2, Unit 3, and Unit 4. Just freehand them in either on the pauldron or on the middle of their torsos. Now let's do some work on the bases. Grab some black primer and paint it around the rims of the bases. This cleans up any overspray from the earlier steps and also prepares us for the next marking that we're going to put down. Once that primer step is dry, you'll want to use some matte white acrylic paint and apply it onto the forward arc of the gears. Once that is dry, apply some demonic yellow acrylic paint onto the white that you had applied earlier. Now I'll switch to matte black acrylic paint and a detailing brush and carefully freehand in hazard markings. This creates a nice decoration in the front of the gears on your bases and also denotes the front arc of the gears, which has significant gameplay implications. To finish off the bases, grab a flocking material of your choice. I'm using this brown material here, and with some Elmer's glue or white glue, apply it with an old brush onto the top of the base, and then after that dunk them into the tub of material, clean them off the rims, and it'll look nice and finished like this. Protect your work with 2 coats of matte varnish. This creates a slightly duller tone on the gears and brighter weapons. As you can see here, as we trowel the weapons onto the gears, it makes the weapons nice and glossy, but the gears themselves are a little bit more muted. As a pro tip, I recommend super gluing some 2x4 round magnets onto the bases of these gears. This allows you to transport them very easily in carrying cases such as this. Here are all the heavy gears for the Allied Southern Territories fully completed. I really hope you enjoyed this video and that it helped you gain some valuable tips for building your own heavy gears or even other models in the hobby. I hope you'll follow along for future videos. Until the next time, happy hobbying, and I will see you soon.